Hello everybody, today we'll be talking about the creepypasta Peter's Shadow. Before fully jumping in, if you're new here, welcome, and if you're returning, it's good to see you again. Also, if you're returning, this is going to be a bit of a different video. As with this video, I'm going to be narrating a story and then going over it at the end. This is the first narration on this channel, but you'll need to hear the story to understand the context at the end, and it's a quick read, so yeah, buckle up.
Click it or ticket.
The creepypasta Peter's Shadow originates off a creepypasta wiki, I believe in 2013, by the user Turtle Ostrich. But we'll get into why I say I believe, because I can't be sure, but I'm almost certain. Without further ado, let's get into Peter's Shadow. They still, to this day, don't believe me. Even my friends don't mention anything paranormal around me. I have become obsessed with it. I've been called confused, a liar, but every time I tell somebody about it, I forget more and more. I don't know why. Maybe it was because I was only 8. I don't trust Disney anymore. It was a Saturday afternoon. My mom just got back from a flea market and picked up a copy of the old Disney movie, Peter Pan. She was supposedly shopping for groceries, but she probably got distracted. This was one of the only times we all had the time to sit and watch a movie together. My mom's always out shopping, and I don't know what Dad's doing most of the time. My brother, Trevor, was there too, but he was always on his phone, Facebooking or doing some other crap. I was the only one excited to watch this movie. So we all sat down on the living room floor. I put the movie in the VCR. The screen was a little fuzzy, but then the previews started rolling. It was just like some old Disney previews, but then something a little peculiar happened. On the title screen, it had the roof of the house, like in the original movie, but Wendy, John, Peter, and the dog were sleeping on the roof, in the air. Ignoring it, we played the movie. It was the same as it would have been, until it came to the part where Peter's shadow came into the room. When it landed on the floor of the room, Wendy looked at it, as she does in the movie. Then the camera started to pan out to the sky. Then the most terrifying thing happened. As it panned out, you could hear Wendy's blood-curdling scream. My dad, panicking, went to the VCR and took out the tape as soon as it went wrong. He told us it was just glitching, then told us to go to bed. Trevor and I, scared shitless, slowly went to bed. I slept on the bottom bunk and he slept on the top. We both stayed up all night, too paranoid to go to sleep. About 3 hours after we laid down, Trevor was too tired to stay up, but I could not go to sleep. Being only 8, I started to sing my favorite song, Day in the Life by the Beatles, to help me fall asleep. Soon enough, I did, but my dreams were filled with horrific screams of Wendy and what Peter's shadow might have done to her. Morning came fast, and my mom and dad told Trevor and I to try and not tell anybody about the movie. As hard as it was, we didn't. When we were on our way home, we both thought we were being followed. We just ignored it, because we thought it was just paranoia. We had a pretty normal afternoon. After our dinner, we both went to bed. Being not as paranoid or scared as we were yesterday, we both were able to get some good sleep. But then, I woke up at about 12:30 a.m. I heard something. It jingled, and was fairly quiet. Then the lamp on my nightstand knocked over. I was too scared to do anything about it, so I slumped in my covers and closed my eyes. After about 30 minutes, I looked up at the underside of the top bunk to see Peter Pan's shadow right there, watching me. I ran from my bed as fast as I could to my parents' bedroom, them reassuring me and telling me it was just a dream. I still refused to sleep in my room. Of course, I ended up sleeping in their room for the night. Sleeping with my parents, I always had a great night's sleep. But when I woke up, the most disturbing thing ever happened to me. I was sleeping in the middle of a desert, alone with a shadow. Terrified, I ran from it, only to find a 75-foot drop. The shadow was hacking into my brain. Possessed, I hopped off the drop, only to figure out that it was all a dream. It felt so real. There was no way that this could have been a dream. That night, I slept in my room with my brother again. After going through some counseling the following day, I had never been so unafraid of anything my whole life. I tried waiting for the shadow to appear on the underside of the bed, so I can confront it, but I got too tired and fell asleep. Waking up in the middle of the night for the same reason I did the night before, I looked to see the shadow watching me. I then reached out to where the knife of the shadow would be. I got a migraine and stopped. I looked at the head of the shadow and stared. Then, becoming conscious, I crawled into a ball under my covers. I started singing A Day in the Life to calm me and forget everything that had to do with this nightmare. Then I noticed I wasn't the one singing it. Trevor started screaming, and I ran out of my bunk and turned on the light. Trevor crying. I looked at the underside of the top bunk to see a red piece of paper crumpled up in a ball. I opened it. 13.5/6 is what it said in curly letters. I don't know what this monster wanted, but it got it. Because Trevor was never able to speak again. This was all based on a true story. For every story, there is exaggeration. And that is the end of the story of Peter's Shadow. So, the census on the internet for this story is pretty mixed. Some people really like this story and think it's a nice little short story creepypasta. However, I'm in the other boat of people who aren't as big of a fan of it. Now, I don't hate it by any means, but people on the internet, some of them really do. They hate how cheesy it is and the repetitive cliches that are found within it. And I can agree to a certain extent. However, one thing almost everyone agrees on, which is rare to find on the internet, is that everyone wishes that there was more to this story. And I also agree with that statement too. Because I personally like things about the story, but it falls under the boat of creepypastas that had a really cool concept, but then a lackluster execution. Like, for example, all of the cliches that are found within the story. Like a VCR, and then something being a little bit off about something that we all love on that VCR, and then a haunted entity from the VCR comes... I'm gonna come. Well, not. And then a haunted entity shows up in someone's dreams, and then nightmares happen. Bada boom, evil entity, it's all a dream, ooga booga. And this is just a side note. I had to stop listening to channels like Mr. Nightmare or B Busta simply because of the writers. The writing sucks. And I'm not gonna just spew cow manure out my ass, or out my mouth. Well, maybe I'm doing both. The reason I say that is because I'm so tired of writers saying, I was terrified, I am horrified, I was deeply disturbed. It's like, yeah, keep telling me how scared you are, because I haven't felt it yet. Like, the reason I say that is because how many times in these type of stories do we have to hear, terrified, I ran from it, the most disturbing thing ever happened to me. Then the most terrifying thing happened. Like, find another way to illustrate that you're scared. Rather than just saying I shit my pants because Big Bertha scared me. Ooh. I digress. And I also realize that most of the people who are writing those stories are kids. Which leads us to this story's origin. Maybe. I'm sorry, I had to get that off my chest about Mr. Nightmare and B Busta. I still love them, I grew up on them. Kisses all around.
Come over here and kiss me on my hot mouth. I'm feeling romantical.
I enjoy the fact of Peter's shadow being evil. And some of the things within the story is a cool horror avenue to go down. Like specifically the shadow singing and then taking someone's voice. I think that's a cool concept. And I think the author should have done more with that. And now here comes my complaints, which there's a couple, but I'm not too upset about it. And I'll tell you why at the end of my complaints. After I bitch. The story was just like a watered down version of The Ring. Messed up VCR tape, demonish entity being merged into real life. And also the ending is really confusing to me. Because it gives us those numbers, which we'll get into in a second. But by adding that, it seemed like the author went in some sort of mystery to the story. But then you probably noticed it at the end of the story, it said, based on a real story. So it's like mixed messages, because it's like, if it's based on a real story, why give us a little bit of mystery to try to dig in deeper? Which, I like the mystery, I like throwing in numbers in there that could relate to something else. But the thing is, the author never talked about what that could be. And there really isn't too many hints. But let's get into the numbers. What the f do the numbers mean, Mason?
That's all we've ever wanted.
Well, honestly, there's a lot of comments online saying how it could relate to biblical passages and verses. So just a disclaimer, we're going to get into Christianity just a little bit. I am not religious, nor am I vastly knowledgeable in Christianity or other religions. But this could relate to the story, so I want to give you the passage at least, and then give you my thoughts afterwards. Okay. So, the numbers at the end, 13.5/6, could relate to Revelations 13.5 and 6. Also, if you're upset that I didn't say the Revelations numbers right, again, I'm not Christian. I'm regurgitating shit I've read off the internet. Revelation 13.5 states, "The beast was allowed to make proud claims which were insulting to God, and it was permitted to have authority for 42 months. While Revelation 13.6 states, "It began to curse God, His name, the place where He lives, and all of those who live in heaven." Now, how does this relate to the story? I don't know. I really don't. I tried figuring out, but people just kind of threw things out on the comment section and didn't explain anything. Which is totally fair, because the author didn't explain anything either. Another disclaimer, I think I did way too much research into something that people didn't really care about at the beginning, but you know what? That's what life's about, baby. Wasting time. The only way I think Revelations 13.5 and 6 can relate to Peter's shadow, I think the fact that the author threatened the shadow with the knife, maybe because in Revelations 13.6 it says, "It began to curse God, His name, and the place where He lives." So maybe the author was, like, by threatening him, that's cursing the entity, which is comparable to God. Yeah, I don't think this makes sense. We'll get into what I think at the end, so just bear with me here. Now, the other example of Christianity maybe relating to Peter's Shadow creepypasta is 13.6 relating to Hosea 13.6, in which it states, "I took care of you. I fed you till you were satisfied, and then you became proud and forgot about me." Again, I think this might relate to how the author started threatening the entity after the entity didn't really do anything wrong. But I don't know. So this is where we're going to get into what I actually think. I think the author of Peter's Shadows saw a lot of cool horror media ideas, wanted to make a story based off of Peter Pan's shadow, and did so, without putting too much thought into it. I mean, think about it. All of the tropes there are just thrown into the story that don't really lead anywhere. Like, even the numbers. That was really popular back in the day, just throwing numbers out that could relate to some sort of passage, or just a timestamp from an obscure music video.
I love Lucy.
So, the number actually means nothing. Now, I'm going to do what almost everyone on the Creepypasta Wiki failed to do, and explain myself. So what backs my claim up? Well, supposedly the author, and I say supposedly, we'll get into that in a second too, because there's just so much mud in this story, Turtle Ostrich added a statement under the comments to add some more context. Now, he or she commented under a different username, MantaRay123, supposedly because they had lost their email, which if you look at the timestamps from when Turtle Ostrich stopped posting and when MantaRay123 started posting, that would make sense, but there's no proof. So just letting you know now, this is speculation. Regardless, the user wanted to clarify something at the end of the story, going on to write how they wrote this story in the 7th grade, which kind of makes sense. And again, that's not dissing. This is impressive for a 7th grader. When I was in 7th grade, I was eating crayons. I still do, but this time I take the rubber off. I take the fuck it. MantaRay123 clarifies the based on the true story part. Nothing else. They pretty much just said it was based off a real story, just extremely exaggerated. But the thing is, it's the whole falling but with style thing. It's bullshit.
They're bullshit!
And again, they didn't go into the numbers, and someone even commented asking, what do the numbers mean? And there was no response. With all that being said, I think Peter's Shadow is honestly a mess. I remember listening to the story when Mr. Nightmare uploaded it, but also I don't see that upload anymore, so maybe something happened to that. But back then, I really enjoyed this story, and I always grew up thinking this was a really good creepypasta, and it's really not. But with all that being said, there is gold in it. It hasn't been found. Look, if the author somehow watches this video, I had this story stuck in my head for years. Like, I remember listening to this when I was like 11, 12, and now I'm like 58. So, good on you. And on top of that, like, I remember writing a story in like the 5th grade, and I watched Indiana Jones, and like every death I had in the story was just someone's face getting melted off. So, one, I'm sure my teachers and parents were worried, but two, like, I'm sure the story was dog shit. I don't have it anymore because, you know, I'm kind of self-aware about how bad my content is. That being said, if you liked the video, you should leave one. If you have any thoughts about my theories or about any of the theories that were thrown out about Peter's Shadow and how it could relate to the Bible, or just any other theories, just let me know because I'm really interested. I cannot state to you how many hours I spent just reading stuff and not writing anything in my notes because I couldn't find anything that related to the stories that made sense. So if you know more about this story or just have more context, let me know. The reason I said the story was originated in 2013, and I think that, is because on Creepypasta Wiki, you can only see when the first edit was done, and I think, I'm a big dum-dum, okay? I think that means the first time it was posted, which would be 2013 by Turtle Ostrich. If I'm wrong, I do apologize. Alright, if you like this video and this like narration, please leave a like and a comment. It lets me know that, you know, maybe we should do this more often. If not, then leave a dislike. I don't really care. My boss isn't going to see this, I think. He doesn't like me anyway, it won't matter. If you think I earned your subscription, then, you know, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next week. Alright, bye.
Why do you want to go to Mexico?
I just love Latinas, Sonic.
What?